All right, here's a quote from today's guest. If someone asks ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, or Google's AI features, what are great places to work in Chicago if I'm an engineer? Your company does not get considered because you have nice values copy. You get considered because the system can find you, understand you, and trust what it finds. That is a different game. That was written by employer brand expert James Ellis, and he joins me on the show from Chicago to talk about how employers should be crafting their career sites today to be found inside the new AI ecosystem. James, welcome, man. It's great to see you.
Good to see you, Chris. How you doing?
Haven't seen you since RecFest there in
It's
Nashville.
yeah, it's been a little bit. I mean, we've all been busy. We've all been, running around like crazy people trying to make things happen. So, no, thrilled to be on here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Excellent. You've been on a roll lately with some great posts. I loved your LinkedIn post you had, by the way, about
Mm.
what needs to change in that. We should do a separate podcast on that. Um, but you wrote a post recently. Let me pull up on the site here. Let me share my screen briefly. How important branding can be found by those guys. Your career site can be the best AI search asset you have. So, great post here, first of all. It's on choosable.ai, by the way, and we'll put a link in the show notes there. But, James, let's start by kind of setting the stage here on where we came from in terms of, the old career site SEO and where we are today in
Mhm.
2026. Give us a highlight there.
Yeah, well, look, Chris, you and I are not new to the game. We remember the days in which SEO was a brand new idea for recruiting leaders. We had to really explain this whole concept of if Google can't find you, you're in trouble. And,
Right.
old dogs like that, we get it. We've been doing that. And we've extended this idea of search engine optimization, SEO, far beyond. And I think we should have always changed it to just search optimization because when you call it SEO, you think, oh, what does Google want me to do? And that's fine, but it's a very limited kind of way of thinking. Instead, we should be thinking about how does Glassdoor find us? How does Indeed find us? Or in LinkedIn or Bing or Instagram or YouTube. And there's so many different ways people search for things on the internet. It's one of the most powerful tools or things that people do on the internet. They search for things. They don't always do it through Google. And we need to kind of be relevant and understand that. What we're seeing is just the next big step of that is to say, okay, is a whole new set of tools that are not searching per se, the way we are naturally been trained to think about it. They're called LLMs. They're these big, cool things I'm explaining, I'm preaching the choir here, I know. But, all these LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, I'm not going to put, you know, Copilot in that mix. That's a dangerous mix. But these tools are searching and they're trying to provide answers for people. They're trying to help people do things. And they do understand the internet. They do look at the internet, but they look at it a little differently. And I think like I said, I've been doing this for a while. And I remember the days when SEO was about tiny, tiny technical details. And I had a friend of
H1
mine.
tags, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that is just the easy stuff. We're talking deep, where does the H2 tag come in relation to the H1 and blah, blah,
Yeah, it's
blah.
got to be nested, right? Yeah.
Oh, it's just nuts. And I had a friend of mine who ran an agency who did SEO specifically with law companies, law firms, which is really interesting because if you think about what law firms are allowed to say online, it's very, very limited. Like they can't say, "Hey, did you see the news where somebody won $1 billion? That was us." They can't say stuff like that. They're limited by what they're allowed to say. So consequently, every law firm sounds the same. It's one serious old bald dude, serious face, wall of books. We fight for you. It's the finger pointing, and they've got some clever phone number or whatever the hell it is, and that's all they
Better call
got.
Saul.
Exactly. And so all they can do is live in this world of tiny technical details because when you're in trouble and you need a lawyer, what's the first thing you do? You go to Google, you type in, I need a lawyer, and boom, first one you go, you go, fine, they're all the dang same. Click it, go. And so they're all living in this technical world. And we've been tricked into thinking that that's what SEO and AEO is really all about, these tiny little technical details. And there is certainly a piece of that, but we are not coders per se. We are not the IT team. That IT teams worry about that stuff. There's a lot of room for us to say things that no one else can say, present our information, present our claims in ways that no one else can, to be far more believable and interesting and engaging to those LLMs than worrying about is the schema set up in the perfect exact right way. Yes, that's helpful, but not nearly as helpful as learning to say something and proving what you're saying with so much credibility that the LLM goes, yeah, I get that. I understand what that is. And that's the game we need to be playing. I know a lot of us, when we face AI's technology, it's very daunting, it's complicated, it's messy, it's changing every 20 seconds, right? It's just, it's deer in the headlights situation. So we kind of go, this is too complicated. I'm gonna wait till everybody figures it out. No one's going to figure it out. It's always going to be changing. But if you figure out what your company is all about and what you're offering, and you can make it crystal clear and not kind of cover it up in recruiting ease and HR ease and legal ease and prove it and clarify it and make it understandable and give it a lot of context, the LMs go, I got it. I know what to do with that. And they get to run. And that's how you're going to win the fight.
Nice. All right. So number one on your list, give your company a real entity homepage. So explain that for us. What do you mean by that?
Well, look, I just did a process where I looked at all 500 of the Fortune 500 career sites. These are the most successful, biggest, most profitable, most spending companies in the world, and they all sound the damn same. And it's killing me because they have all this opportunity to stand out and they refuse. They all kind of cookie cutter their way into it. Yeah, they got their logo in it. Yeah, they had a selection of pictures and fonts, but really they're all talking about how much we're growing and we're a place of purpose and we can do amazing stuff together. And they all sound the same. And if you swap the logos, you couldn't tell one from another. And that is crazy because your career site is the one thing that you, as close to, own, right? You want to go tell LinkedIn they should change their font? Good luck to you. Have fun. That's a great time. Have a great time for arguing with that. You actually own your site. You can change things. You can add photos. You can change structure. You can change the copy. You have a lot of control over it. On top of which, it's on a domain, the URL, that has authority, right? If you work at Walmart, Walmart.com is linking to you. That's a lot of domain authority. LLMs go, I know what Walmart is. That's a big company. That's important. That's valuable. And it extracts some measure of value to say, oh, it's on that domain. It must be real. It must be important. If you're on bobsbighouseofjobs.org, there's not a lot of domain authority there. So if you've got a company that's got some domain authority and your site lives on that domain, you should be using it. If you can control what you say, if you can control what you show, you should be using it. And it's the abdication to cookie cutterness is what's killing everybody, right? Not, saying here are our values, here are our benefits and listing 4 bullet points. That's not going to get you where you want to go because every company is doing that. What you
Yeah.
need to do is figure out how are you different? How are you interesting? How are you not like everybody else? And prove it. And your career site is the perfect place to do it because you don't have to do it like everybody else. You really don't. You can say what makes you look best, not what everybody else is doing. You don't have to play follow the leader. You can play your own game. And in fact, the more you play your own game and the better you get at it, the more you're going to win.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you get into those big corporate companies, though, James, it's like, everybody wants to say,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's like too many cooks in the kitchen there as far as, how the career page should
Oh,
look.
yeah. Yeah. I
It's a
look,
big challenge for them,
and we all have those scars. Like we've all been in the room with 20 people who are like, you're going, why are you in this room? But talk about the career site. You haven't hired anybody in 15 years. You haven't looked for a job in 12 years. What the hell do you know? Oh, you're a hippo. You're the highest paid person's opinion. And you decided you like that color blue. Guess what? We're now in that color blue. And that sucks. I have those scars. I've been doing, even before I was in employer branding, I was building websites and doing marketing and digital marketing for 20 years before that. So I know exactly that pain. And there's a reason why most career sites look like they're all 3 years old, because once they got launched, the gestation process was so painful that the employer brander or the owner of the career site kind of went, never again. Oh
you
my God. And so it just sits there static. And I get how emotionally you got to that point, but it's not doing you any good. You need to go in and start making some changes. You need, and I would say start small. What is the biggest possible change you can make without having to call together the committee, right? Change a headline. Like I'm a big believer that career sites should be living, breathing things. They should change the headline every week. They should just try things. Try changing copy, try changing photos, hey, it's women's, if it's Women's History Month, great. You don't have to say we're celebrating women's history. You can just show more women, right? If it's February, show more Black people. Show that you care about these audiences without having to be performative about it. Just say, look, we understand, we get it. Here's what's going on. These sites should be living things. And the more they're living, the more you have an opportunity to kind of say, okay, we're going to add this piece of copy. We're going to add this element. We're going to prove it this way, or this testimonial, this story, or this policy point, or whatever. And then you really start to take ownership of that thing. It's driving value. It's findable. It's discoverable. It's useful. It's valuable. It's doing the thing you want it to do. And suddenly, people are less inclined to kind of stick their nose into that kind of process.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if I ever ran an employer brand at a big company, I would hire like an ex-news reporter. So okay, go be the voice of our employees and careers and just do stories on us. Like that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And AI, right now, AI is allowing you to do that even
Yeah.
without hiring a report. There's so many ways to kind of collect that detail. And, I think of it not as content, I think of it as testimonials and proof, right? In a lot of ways, especially given the subject we're talking about here. If you say you're a company that cares, and every company likes to say that they care, what does that mean? Well, if I have four quotes from four different employees from four different levels, from four different offices talking about their story, and if it's a two-sentence story, it's still a story saying, oh, yeah, when this happened, this is useful information. That's a story you can grab and stick on a career site. And suddenly that's the LLM sees that as proof. It doesn't have to be cited by the Wall Street Journal to be proof. It can be evidence of reality, and that's useful.
Yeah. That kind of brings us to number two here. Make your claims auditable. You say stop publishing pure claims. If you say we offer unusual ownership, show how. If you say engineers have real influence, prove it. If you say we invest in growth, document that. So yeah, that's a great point there.
Yeah, too many career sites are just listings of nice things. You're like, yeah, but if everybody, look, companies only do so much, right? There's no companies out there kind of, I don't know, I can't think of a creative way here, but like every company kind of sounds the same because they're all talking about we care about our people, we're a great company, a great place to work. We have values, we have benefits. Like, yeah, I get it. Like if I'm buying a car, I'm going to notice that every car talks about its reliability and its fuel efficiency, right? I get that. That's kind of table stakes. And that's fine if that's a fight you can win. If you're a Honda or you're a Toyota or you're, a Chrysler or whatever it is, or a Ford or whatever, like that's a place you can win, then that's what you should talk about.
Yeah.
But do you think Ferrari talks about reliability and fuel efficiency? Probably not. In fact, I know they don't. They talk about, hey, like everything is about this is a sexy dang car, man. This is sex on wheels, what this is. There's a reason why they're all red, right? That's the only color they sell them in. That's what they are. And you almost can smell that sense of, well, if you have to ask about the fuel efficiency, this is not the car for you, madam or sir. This is not the place you want to be. They are not competing where everybody else is competing. They found a place where they can say, we are this thing and we are clearly this thing. And every element of us speaks
Yeah.
to that thing, right? There's no hidden page they talk about fuel efficiency. There's no hidden page that talks about, the cost per mile to operate, right? They don't care. They don't care. They assume you have seven cars. You're looking at a Ferrari. You probably do. So if you're a thing, you have to be crystal clear. You have to offer that evidence. I was working with a company last year, and we're doing the process. We're trying to identify what the differentiated value is. And they kept saying, oh, we really care about each other. And I'm kind of going, oh God, don't roll your eyes on camera, dude. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's just bad. They're going to see it. They're going to fire you. And I just kept going, oh my God, there's nothing here. If I finally found the company that has nothing interesting or different to say, I'm 45 minutes into this conversation. I'm panicked. I'm like legit panicked. And someone says, yeah, like last month I got sick and they sent DoorDash food to my house. I was like, what?
There's
That
proof right there. Yeah.
Exactly. And that is such a clear evidence. And obviously, most companies are really bad at seeing their own proof. They don't understand what their world is like because they live it every day. But that is a great story. It's a one sentence, two sentence story. But there's so much proof of that, of what they're offering, because it's specific, it's attractive, it's different, it's real. They can talk about it. You can show it, in reality. It's such a clear piece of evidence that LLMs go, I get what that is. I'm going to believe that. And so when someone searches for, I want to work at a company that cares about me, every company is going to say, we care about our people, but this is one company that says, this is how. In fact, I even said, you should actually go find your CFO and say, go pull out your budget from last year and find out how much did you spend on DoorDash last year? Show me the number. Show me the dollar figure of how much your company spent sending food to sick people who were, sick employees couldn't get in. That's further evidence. And then what's the policy? What's the program? What's the limit? Prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's not a good idea. It's not a thing that happened once. It's a policy. It's a way the company is. That's undeniable proof.
That's a great story. And so what happened with that? What did they do with that? Did they push
Well,
that?
that's the problem with my job is that I kind of live in that early stage. We come up with a strategy, we come up with the ideas, and they have to take it. And I
They have
get
to. Yeah.
they have to live with it and they have to sell it up a chain to say, hey, can we talk about this? And it's not an easy sell. But hiring people is the most important thing a company can do, and I believe that sincerely. It shouldn't be easy. It should not be easy. If it was easy, we'd all, work for Johnny Ives or we'd all hire nothing but Johnny Ives. This is a game of we have to do the hard work of pushing back, giving good reasons, giving evidence about why being different and saying something different in a different way is how we win.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, let's talk about job postings. You say number three, build durable pages, not just disposable job posts. One of the biggest mistakes in recruiting content is pulling all the useful language inside job postings that disappear in 30 days. So what should the new job posting look like, James?
Well, the thing is that I've been doing this a while, and I remember a lot of people, and I've talked about this idea that for most people, the first impression of any company is the job posting. So put your best foot forward in the job posting. So don't make the job posting like you're writing a telegram where you're paid by the character, right? You're charged by the character. Put some content in it. Put that, spell it out. The thing is that you don't put all your eggs in that basket. You can't say that everything lives in the job posting. In that project where I looked at all Fortune 500 companies. Do you know there are 4 companies that don't have a career site? They just go straight to their Workday implementation when listing their jobs. 4 Fortune 500 companies that simply don't have a career site. They're just going to let the jobs do all the work. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, well, if for one, you can afford Workday, so you got the money. Two, you're a Fortune 500 company, so I know you got the money. You've decided to abdicate. You've decided to let the job do all the heavy lifting, except that job, that URL disappears like that. And the LLMs understand that if the evidence isn't perpetual, if it isn't perpetually evolving, it isn't something you're always changing and adding to, if it's just disposable evidence, it's not really evidence, right? Even newspapers, the whole, how useful is that stuff if it's lining a birdcage tomorrow? New York Times has archives of all the content it's published since it started. That's what it's there for. That's evidence. It's not disappearing after 30 days. It may not be as useful the day after, but it's certainly not disappearing the way job posts are. So if you're going to tell a story, tell it on the career site and tell it on the job posting, because the job posting is still very much for people searching on job boards, which is some percentage of your audience, the first place you're getting making an impression. So you want to make a great impression. But also, if you're not also putting that content on the career site and all other properties, when someone goes, I don't know this company, but they're making a really nice claim, what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to search for you. And it doesn't matter if it's Google or a ChatGPT. You want to make sure wherever they land next reinforces that story. You don't want to say, hey, we're a great place to work. And they search for you and they say, hey, we're all about performance. Well, how does that fit? It can fit, but if you're not explaining it, if you're not detailing, if you're not, they're going, I don't understand what to do with this. And the thing, you and I know that when it comes to sales, which is what this is, the second you introduce uncertainty is the second they leave. It's like there's other places to go look. This is not worth it for me to kind of parse together and split the hairs and figure out what you're actually trying to tell me. I'm just going to walk away and look at the next job, and they're going to be more clear. They're going to win, which ironically or interestingly is useful for the LMs too, right? Being clear, being direct, and repeating that evidence in multiple places is further evidence for the LMs to go, yep, they must believe this thing. They've offered proof. They talked about it in multiple places. It's a repeating pattern, which by the way, a brand is really just nothing but a pattern. It's a repeating pattern of evidence and ideas. This must be what they care about, right? Walmart is all about low prices every day. They don't have a section of the site that says, and here's where we sell BMWs at a high margin. They don't, because it doesn't do the low prices every day situation. Everything Walmart does is low prices. Everything that all the big companies, all the best brands you can think of are about the Coke. It's all about happiness every single day in 1,000 different ways. The more you're all about the same thing, the more believable you are, not just to people, but also to the computers.
What's one company that has good job postings? Does a name come to mind?
Oh man, there was a Whereby used to do a great one. That was to be my go-to, and I thought it was a fantastic effort of one not only just having a very long job posting. It was a job for a mid-level developer, but it looked like an executive headhunter, book. I don't know if you've ever seen one. When a headhunter goes looking for a new CMO, they don't come with a job posting. They come with a 10-page booklet of here's what the company does, here's why the company's succeeding, here's some very simple financial projections, here's what the job's going to entail, a little bit of context around why they need someone. They give a lot of evidence. And this job posting was just like that. On top of which, it was written like an actual human being and not like somebody manufacturing bullets,
Yeah.
right? It was, it
What company
was
was it again?
Whereby?
Whereby. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've looked since then. The best job postings have kind of since, and I don't know. And I know the people who were doing the HR in that company, and I happen to know they did great work, and I know they've since moved on. But to me, that was if you can find go on what's the Wayback Machine and go look at Whereby jobs from 2 or 3 years ago. My favorites. They were always just so good, and like even their equal opportunity language around here's why we need to ask you if you're a man or a woman or something else or here whether
Yeah.
what the race is and all that. The way they described it didn't sound like 3 lawyers arguing with each other the way most companies do, right? It sounded like this is why we're collecting this evidence and this is why it's useful to you and this is why it's useful to us and we'd appreciate it. Like it was just so considered. It was so useful. So I knew when I saw that, I'm like, yeah, I want to go look at more evidence to see that that's true. But it was such a great welcome mat of who they were and what they cared about that it's like, I have a clear understanding of what this company is offering me here, but I still need further evidence, but I get it. And I know why I should go look for further evidence.
Nice. All right. Number four is probably my favorite, James, because to me, it's like it's such low-hanging fruit that every company can do, and that is
Yeah.
FAQs or Q&As about what it's like to work there. So talk about that.
Yeah. The funny thing about LLMs is that as smart as they are, they still don't understand that when you're talking about cat, are you talking about the small feline creature that lives in your house, or are you talking about the large tractor company? They don't know. It's not obvious to them. Like you have to introduce context. You have to spell these things out. And that takes a lot of cognitive effort on the LLM's part to say, what the heck is a cat? What does it mean? Right. And so it's doing all this stuff. But if you say, here's some context, here's some information, here's some context, here's some information about that. It's like spoon feeding your best information to a hungry baby. Oh, this is the good stuff. This isn't the strained peas or something I got to chew. This is the yummy stuff, right? This is the good yogurt. I don't know where I'm going with that one, but that's what an FAQ is. It's about, hey, here's some context. Here's a question. It can't just be, what's it like to work there? That's not enough. That's not enough context. Not enough kind of setup. You want to say, what is it like? What is the day to day working at this company in the finance team? That is a good question because suddenly you're providing enough context that goes, oh, if someone's asking what's it like to work in this company at the finance team, I know what to show them. I know exactly what to do. I don't have to think too hard. And LMs love to not have to think too hard. So if
Yeah.
you're providing it in a clear structure, LMs eat that stuff up with a spoon. Now, the trick, of course, is you can't get boring with your questions. You can't go generic with your questions. You have to
Yeah.
say, what you have to think really hard about what your core audience actually wants to know, which means actually, as you unpack this, is who is your core audience? So if let's say you're hiring nurses, and I've been thinking about nurses a lot lately because I'm doing a project, and I'm thinking, okay, are nurses all the same? No, of course not. And yet, if I go to 20 different hospitals and health systems, they all talk about nurses the same way. We're going to take care of you because you're going to take care of people. That's what a nurse is all about, which is not wrong, but it's every hospital. And if I'm a nurse going, I want to choose between these three hospitals, how am I choosing? They're not giving me enough evidence. So who am I and what am I looking for? Which means the hospital that wins is the hospital that says, we're not looking for entry level, or we're not looking for people who don't perform. We're not looking for people who don't want to elevate their skills, or there's something about the audience of nurses that you specifically want to appeal to, which means knowing your audience. And
Yeah.
once you know your audience, you can say, well, what would that audience ask questions about that other audiences might not? And
I ju-
that's where the better questions come from. Yeah.
I just pulled up like I thought Geico had a careers FAQ, so I just Googled it and I just found that like I saw this from Indeed here. So Indeed has a section
Yeah.
called
Let's
questions
be
and answers
fair.
about working at Geico.
Yeah.
They're targeting Geico keywords right there. They're
Exactly. Well,
doing
look,
what you should be doing as an employer.
look, we all know Indeed has a long history of understanding its SEO and thinking about how to generate as much traffic as humanly possible. And we don't have to go too far into that because that's a little out of my depth, but we all know that's kind of its métier.
Yeah.
It's its focus. This is no different. They understand if you structure this content and say, look, this is what people are actually typing into their LLMs, this is what they're actually going to get. Now, remember, and I listen to all these podcasts about AI and they say the same thing over and over again. We've all been trained by Google to search in 4 and 6 word keyword sections, right? You did it. You did it right there.
Yeah.
Geico, FAQ, job, right? Like boom, boom, boom. Like there wasn't a sentence. No human speaks like that. LLMs love it when you give it more context, when you speak. In fact, I have a lot of people I know do it as well. My microphone connects to my computer. I just have to hit a button. I can just talk into my computer. It transcribes it and says, okay, so all my ChatGPT and Gemini, no, not Gemini, but Claude interactions are usually me talking at it with my mouth, and it kind of transcribes and puts it all together. That means that my posts, my prompts are way, way, way bigger and more dense and full of more information than what Google has trained us to do. So your FAQ should follow suit. Your FAQ should not be, what's it like to work here? That's too small. It should be more detailed, more interesting, more complicated, and give an answer. The other thing I've noticed is that,
Like what's it like to work as a claims adjuster at Geico or something like that.
yeah, frankly, if you could get to the office, if you could get to the location, if you could get to the title, anything that gives more specificity is something the LM is going to try and do. Because what it's trying to do is trying to play matching games. It's
Mhm.
trying to say, you've asked for this. I know exactly what this is. Boom, we're done. And that feels good. But if you go, they've asked for this and this kind of fits. Okay, how about this? It doesn't feel as good. It doesn't work as well. So you want to make it as clear as possible. Now, it's really hard because there are no great tools for going, what do people search on LLMs? There really aren't. And because these prompts are way, way bigger and not like Google, where it's like 10 words max and we just focus on these individual keywords, it's very easy to write two different prompts, which sound almost identical, which get wildly different answers because there's one or two words that are slightly different. So it's really hard to kind of measure. So you have to, which I think is great. I think it's that over indexing on your ranking, which really got us into trouble, which really got us into the whole, nitty gritty detail, technical details that, where it's a game and not really trying to tell a good story. We can't really see where we rank on LLMs very well with a lot of specificity, a lot of accuracy. So you have to kind of bank on the more we're specific, the more the right people are going to find us. And the proof ends up being in the pudding where you have to look at your Google Analytics and say, what amount of our traffic is coming from these LLMs? And is that number going higher? That's the best indicator that you're doing what you need to be doing.
Number seven, fresh content. You see, your company does not need to be a daily content machine, but needs to show signs of life here. So just touch briefly on that.
Yeah, that's back to the whole career sites being 3 years old, right? It's just and never being touched because it's painful and it's uncomfortable. And I don't mean everybody has to start a blog again. This doesn't have to be 2012, 2010 all over again. There's nothing wrong with it. And there never was anything wrong with it. Blogs are simply serialized content. The problem was we just got boring with it and we started to cookie cutter it out. But you can still be including lots of dynamic information. You can talk about, what you're up to as a company, right? Your company has, if you're a big size company, your company has a news team, a PR team, and has a comms team. Point to recent news events and say how it's changing, how you're hiring, or what you're looking for. That's enough to really say, okay, there's something going on. And frankly, why wouldn't your comms team love that? They would love that you were talking about their news stories on other platforms. That sounds fantastic for them. You just have to kind of refactor them to say, how would a candidate need to know this information and what would they do with that information and kind of refactor it into a space for candidate thinking. It's not hard to do. And ironically, LLMs do a great job doing that stuff for you. But that's really what it's about. It doesn't need a radical refresh every 20 minutes. It doesn't need a redesign every 2 years. It
It
really
just needs
means,
to evolve over time.
yeah,
Yeah.
again, your career site should absolutely be a living, breathing thing. And frankly, good employer branders live in their career site. They touch it once a week. They touch it once a day where they're just a try this, swap out a headline, swap out a word, try this link. Oh, new story, new video, this. Like they're always playing with it because that is ultimately the place you're going to make the best impression to the candidate, but also how you're feeding the LLM with content over time.
Awesome. Good stuff, James. Last thing on your list is about measuring citation visibility, not traffic. And I also, it's not really
Yeah,
ranking too, is it? I've heard a couple different terms. So it's not really ranking anymore because there's not listing links
there's no
on the
ranks.
search
Yeah.
results, right? So, how should employers think about the ROI of all this and measuring it?
Look, an ROI is really a complicated measure because we all know that every candidate is not a good candidate. The fact that you attracted 1 million candidates is not necessarily a good thing if none of them are worth hiring, right? So that's not his problem because all the tools we use to measure this stuff is from marketing side, and every dollar is a good dollar, so every lead is a good lead. They're fine with that. We live in a slightly different world. So yes, initially you want to say, is the content we're putting out there leading to more engagements and more traffic through the LMs? That is a good thing. That means kind of the heartbeat's happening. You're doing good, hygiene for making sure your content's being shown. Now, where are you showing up? Who's citing you? Who's talking about you? How do you engage that stuff so that you're more and more focused? You're narrowing the aperture, not to be generally appealing to all, but to be more and more appealing to the people you actually want to hire. And I don't care about the people you don't want to hire. And that means getting more clear about the word usage, right? There's really interesting stuff here where we're going to start to see a lot of evidence about your choice of words across the site. Textio did this a couple of years ago, probably close to 7 years ago, where they looked at big companies and they said, we scraped their entire career sites and all their job postings, and we looked at what words came up more often than most other companies. It was really interesting that Netflix talked about something and Microsoft talked about something very different. They use these terms over and over, like 20 times more often than other companies. We're going to see more of that research coming down the pike because the word choice is going to matter. It's not just about, is it positive? It's more about, is it positive to the audience we care about? And that is a function of employer branding and living inside that differentiated value and proving it at every single segment. A lot of employer branding, people think employer branding is very much, okay, we made an EVP, we turned it into a poster and we made it into a headline on a career site, QED, we're all set. No, it informs every choice you make. It informs the word choice. It informs the sentence structure. It informs everything you do. And if you say you're a wonderful place to work, but none of your words convey that, your big claim, your EVP is worthless. So the same thing is happening here. The LM is looking for evidence of proof. If you say you care about your people, show me news stories where you're talking about that. Because if it's true, there should be evidence of those things. It should be crystal clear. And if it's not going to weight it as much. Now, I don't want this to become a PR exercise where your job is to say, how many different places can I, because, I remember those SEO days too, where it was all link trading. And it was like, this is all farming. This is horrible. This is about being so clear of what you're about and what you care about and what you offer and what you're looking for, that it's true in a fractal level. That if I took any sentence from your career site, I can see, if they say they offer innovation, even in this sentence, they talk about innovation. They indicate innovation. They think about innovation here and here and here and here, not just on the headline. And I think the more you think holistically about your content, starting with the career site, because the career site really is informing the frame through which everybody sees your stuff, that is how you're going to win. That's how the LM is going to say, I get what this company is all about, what they're offering, so that when someone says, what's a good place to work in Chicago? If I'm an engineer who cares about professional development, this company shows up and this company does not, which is where the game lives.
Awesome. Great stuff, James. Always great to have you as a guest, and appreciate you stopping by here today on RegTech.
Thrilled to do it. Thanks so much for having me.
Best place to go find you.
Employerbrandlabs.com, or my new site, which is where this article is. It's choosable.ai. So check that out.
Yeah, what's that site all about, by the way?
So look, I do enough AI in my day-to-day business, and I know that AI is so powerful and useful. It's something that I want to bring to more employer branders and recruiters. And we could do a whole hour on this, but AI is really hard to implement on a company level. It's really easy to embrace on an individual level. And recruiters and employer branders are very often individuals. Even if you're in a recruiting team, you spend 99% of your time all by yourself on a laptop, right? It's the one meeting every Wednesday morning where you all come together and kind of talk to each other. For the most part, you are cowboys and cowgirls out in the lone prairie. You should be embracing these amazing LM tools. You should be embracing Claude and ChatGPT and making it build skills and making it your coaches and doing all this stuff. And to me, that thinking is what Choosable AI is all about. How do I empower individuals to do better employer branding and better recruiting? Because the individual is where that win happens.
There you go, folks. That will do for this episode of the RegTech Podcast. Thanks again, James. We are part of the Purple Acorn Network. Thanks again to Jobcase and Dahlia for their sponsorship. Be sure to follow myself and RegTech Media on LinkedIn. See every podcast, video, and blog we publish. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And remember, always be recruiting. All right, that's a wrap, man. Good
Boom.
stuff. Good
Thanks.